Hello, sweet Squirrel Squad. It's time. Yes, I got another hat finished, and it was going to be crystals. But if you see, I screwed up and made it too short, and then I had to crochet around here. And I don't want to give Crystal a screwed up hat, so I've started another one. Here we go. We were in the middle of a chapter, or maybe not exactly the middle, but what of. And then the next one is like crazy long. No, it's not. It's maybe the one I don't know. We'll see. Here we go. Let's see. Afterward. Where were we? I'm going to go back and reread a little bit. To May's great delight, Mr. Lawrence not only bought the vases, but pervaded the hall with one under each arm. The other gentlemen speculated with equal rashness in all sorts of frail trifles. That was, I think Amy had sent them over to May's table to buy some stuff. And wandered helplessly about afterward, burdened with wax flowers, painted fans, filigree portfolios, and other useful and appropriate purchases that we had read. Now, Aunt Carol was there, heard the story, looked pleased, and said something to Mrs. March in a corner, which made the latter lady beam with satisfaction and watch Amy with a full face of mingled pride and anxiety, though she did not betray the cause of her pleasure till several days later. The fair was pronounced a success, and when May bade Amy good night, she did not gush as usual, but gave her an affectionate kiss and a look which said, "Forgive and forget." That satisfied Amy, and when she got home, she found the vases paraded on the parlor chimney-piece with a great bouquet in each. The reward of merit for a magnanimous march, as Laurie announced with a flourish. You've a deal more principle and generosity and nobleness of character than I ever gave you credit for, Amy. You've behaved sweetly, and I respect you with all my heart," said Joe warmly as they brushed their hair together late that night. "Yes, we all do, and love her for being so ready to give. It must have been dreadfully hard, after working so long and setting your heart on selling your own pretty things. I don't believe I could have done it as kindly as you did," added Beth from her pillow. "Why, girls, you needn't praise me so. I only did it as I'd be done by, like the golden rule. You laugh at me when I say I want to be a lady, but I mean a true gentlewoman in mind and manners, and I try to do it as far as I know how. I can't explain exactly, but I want to be above the little meannesses and follies and faults that spoil so many women." Amen to that. I'm far from it now, but I do my best and hope in time to be what Mother is. Amy spoke earnestly, and Joe said with a cordial hug, "I understand now what you mean, and I'll never laugh at you again. You are getting on faster than you think, and I'll take lessons of you in true politeness, for you've learned the secret, I believe. Try away, dearie. You'll get your reward some day, and no one will be more delighted than I shall." A week later, Amy did get her reward, and poor Joe found it hard to be delighted. A letter came from Aunt Carol, and Mrs. March's face was illuminated to such a degree when she read it that Joe and Beth, who were with her, demanded what the glad tidings were. "Aunt Carol is going abroad next month and wants me to go with her," burst in Joe, flying out of her chair in an uncontrollable rapture. "No, dear, not you. It's Amy." Oh, Mother, she's too young. It's my turn first. I've wanted it so long. It would do me so much good and be so altogether splendid. I must go. I'm afraid it's impossible, Joe, Aunt says, Amy, decidedly. And it's not for us to dictate when she offers such a favor. It's always so. Amy has all the fun, and I have all the work. It isn't fair, oh, it isn't fair, cried Joe passionately. I'm afraid it's partly your own fault, dear. When Aunt spoke to me the other day, she regretted your blunt manners and too independent spirit. And here she writes, as if quoting something you had said, I planned at first to ask Jo, but as favors burden her, and she hates French, I think I won't venture to invite her. Amy is more docile, will make a good companion for Flo, and receive gratefully and any help the trip may give her. Oh, my tongue, my abominable tongue, why can't I learn to keep it quiet, groaned Jo, remembering words which had been her undoing. When she had heard the explanation of the quoted phrases, Mrs. March said sorrowfully, I wish you could have gone, but there is no hope of it this time, so try to bear it cheerfully and don't sadden Amy's pleasure by reproaches or regrets. I'll try, said Jo, winking hard as she knelt down to pick up the basket as she had joyfully upset. I'll take a leaf out of her book and try not only to seem glad, but to be so, and not grudge her 1 minute of happiness, but it won't be easy, for it is a dreadful disappointment, and poor Jo bedewed the little fat pincushion she held with several very bitter tears. Jo, dear, I'm very selfish, but I couldn't spare you, and I'm glad you ain't going quite yet, whispered Beth, embracing her, basket and all, with such a clinging touch and loving face that Jo felt comforted in spite of the sharp regret that made her want to box her own ears and humbly beg Aunt Carol to burden her with this favor and see how gratefully she would bear it. By the time Amy came in, Jo was able to take her part in the family jubilation, not quite as heartily as usual, perhaps, but without repinings at Amy's good fortune. The young lady herself received the news as tidings of great joy, went about in a solemn sort of rapture, and began to sort her clothes and pack her pencils that evening, leaving such trifles as clothes, money, and passports to those less absorbed in visions of art than herself. It isn't a mere pleasure trip to me, girls, she said impressively as she scraped her best palette. It will decide my career, for if I have any genius, I shall find it out in Rome and will do something to prove it. Suppose you haven't, said Jo, sewing away with red eyes at the new collar, which were to be handed over to Amy. Then I shall come home and teach drawing for my living, replied the aspirant for fame, with philosophic composure, but she made a wry face at the prospect and scratched away at her palette as if bent on vigorous measures before she gave up hope. No, you won't. You hate hard work, and you'll marry some rich man and come home to sit in the lap of luxury all your days, said Jo. Your predictions sometimes come to pass, but I don't believe that one will. I'm sure I wish it would, for if I can't be an artist myself, I should like to be able to help those who are, said Amy, smiling as if the part of Lady Bountiful will suit her better than that of a poor drawing teacher. Said Jo with a sigh. If you wish, you'll have it, for your wishes are always granted. Mine, never. Would you like to go? Asked Amy, thoughtfully flattening her nose with her knife. Rather. Well, In a year or two, I'll send for you and we'll dig in the farm for relics and carry out all the plans we've made so many times. Thank you. I'll remind you of your promise when that joyful day comes, if it ever does, returned Joe, accepting the vague but magnificent offer as gratefully as she could. There was not much time of preparation, and the house was in a ferment till Amy was off. Joe bore up very well. The last flutter of blue ribbon vanished when she retired to her refuge, the garret, and cried till she couldn't cry any more. Amy likewise bore up stoutly till the steamer sailed. Then, just as the gangway was about to be withdrawn, it suddenly came over her that a whole ocean was soon to roll between her and those who loved her best, and she clung to Laurie, the last lingerer, saying with a sob, "Oh, take care of them for me, and if anything should happen, I will, dear, I will, and if anything happens, I'll come and comfort you," whispered Laurie, little dreaming how sad he would be called upon to keep his word. So Amy sailed away to find the old world, which is always new and beautiful to young eyes, while her father and friend watched her from the shore, fervently hoping that none but gentle fortunes would befall the happy-hearted girl who waved her hand to them till she could see nothing but the summer sunshine dazzling on the sea. And that was the end of chapter 30. I think it was called Consequences, which would make sense, especially since poor Joe couldn't go on the trip. Yep, it was called Consequences. All right, we will see, since it's only 12 minutes in, how far I can get in this. Probably not much. 31, our foreign correspondent. These look like letters from Amy to home, and maybe from home back to her. We'll see. Dearest people. Oh, and it says London up there. Dearest people, here I really sit at a front window of the Bath Hotel, Piccadilly. I've been there before. It's not a fashionable place, but Uncle stopped here years ago and won't go anywhere else. However, we don't mean to stay long, so it's no great matter. Oh, I can't begin to tell you how I enjoy it all. I never can, so I'll only give you bits out of my notebook, for I've done nothing but sketch and scribble since I started. I sent a line from Halifax when I felt pretty miserable, but after that I got on delightfully. Seldom ill, on deck all day, with plenty of pleasant people to amuse me. Every night was very kind to me, especially everyone. Where did I get night? Everyone was very kind to me, especially the officers. Don't laugh, Joe. Gentlemen really are very necessary aboard ship, to hold on to or to wait upon one. And as they have nothing to do, it's a mercy to make them useful. Otherwise, they would smoke themselves to death, I'm afraid. Aunt and Flo were poorly all the way, and liked to be let alone. So when I had done what I could for them, I went and enjoyed myself. Such walks on deck, such sunsets, such splendid air and waves. It was almost as exciting as riding a fast horse. When we went rushing on so grandly, I wish Beth could have come. It would have done her so much good. As for Joe, she would have done her so much good. Wait a minute. As for Joe, she would have gone up and sat on the main top jib, or whatever the high thing is called. made friends with the engineers, and tooted on the captain's speaking trumpet. She'd have been in such a state of rapture. It was all heavenly, but I was glad to see the Irish coast, and I found it very lovely, so green and sunny, with brown cabins here and there, ruins on some of the hills, and gentlemen's country seats in the valleys, with deer feeding in the parks. It was early in the morning, but I didn't regret getting up to see it, for the bay was full of little boats, the shore so picturesque, and a rosy sky overhead. I never shall forget it. At Queenstown, one of my new acquaintances left us, Mr. Lennox, and when I said something about the ladies of Killarney, he sighed and sang with a look at me. "Oh, have you ever heard of Kate Kearney? She lives on the banks of Killarney." Maybe it's Kearney. From the glance of her eye shone danger and fly, for fatal's the glance of Kate Kearney. Wasn't that nonsensical? We only stopped at Liverpool a few hours. It's a dirty, noisy place, and I was glad to leave it. Uncle rushed out and bought a pair of dogskin gloves, some ugly thick shoes, and an umbrella, and got shaved a la mutton chop the first thing. Then he flattered himself that he looked like a true Briton. But the first time he had the mud cleaned off his shoes, the little black boot knew that an American stood in them and said with a grin, "There you are, sir. I've give 'em the latest Yankee shine." It amused Uncle immensely. Oh, I must tell you about what that absurd Lennox did. He got his friend Ward, who came on with us, to order a bouquet for me. And the first thing I saw in my room was a lovely one with Robert Lennox's compliments on the card. What's that? Wasn't that fun, girls? I like traveling. I never shall get to London if I don't hurry. The trip was like riding through a long picture gallery full of lovely landscapes. The farmhouses were my delight, with thatched roofs, ivy up the eaves, latticed windows, and stout women with rosy cheeks, with rosy children at the doors. The very cattle looked more tranquil than ours as they stood knee-deep in clover, and the hens had a contented cluck, as if they never got nervous. Like Yankee biddies. Such perfect color I never saw. The grass is so green, sky so blue, grain so yellow, wood so dark. I was in a rapture all the way. So was Flo, and we kept bouncing from one side to the other, trying to see everything while we were whisking along at the rate of 60 miles an hour. Aunt was tired and went on to sleep. But Uncle read his guidebook and wouldn't be astonished at anything. This is the way he went on. Amy flying up. "Oh, that must be Kenilworth, that great place among the trees." Flo darting to my window. "How sweet. We must go there sometime. Won't we, Pa?" Uncle calmly admiring his boots. "No, my dear, not unless you want beer. That's a brewery." A pause, and then Flo cried out, "Bless me, there's a gallows and a man going up." Where?" shrieks Amy, staring at the two tall posts with the crossbeam and some dangling chains. "A colliery," remarked Uncle with a twinkle of his eye. "Here's a lovely flock of lambs all laying down," says Amy. See, Pa, aren't they pretty? Asked Flo. Asked Flo sentimentally. Geese, young ladies, returns Uncle, in a tone that keeps us quiet till Flo settles down to enjoy the flirtations of Captain Cavendish, and I have the scenery all to myself. Of course it rained when we got to London, and there was nothing to be seen but fog and umbrellas. We rested, unpacked, and shopped a little between the showers. Aunt Mary got me some new things, for I came off in such a hurry I wasn't half ready. A sweet white hat and blue feather, a distracting muslin to match, and the loveliest mantle you ever saw. Shopping in Regent Street is a perfectly splendid thing. Seems so cheap. Nice ribbons, only 6p a yard. I laid in a stock, but she'll get my gloves in Paris. Don't that sound sort of elegant and rich? Flo and I, for the fun of it, ordered a handsome, Hansom, cab while Aunt and Uncle were out and went for a drive. Though we learned afterward that it wasn't the thing for young ladies to ride in them alone. It was so droll for them. For when we were shut up in the wooden apron, the man drove so fast that Flo was frightened and told me to stop him. But he was outside behind somewhere, and I couldn't get at him. He didn't hear me call, nor see my flap, my parasol in front, and there were quite helpless, rattling away and whirring around corners at a breakneck pace. At last, in my despair, I saw a little door in the roof, and on poking it open, a red eye appeared, and a beery voice said, "Now then, Mum." I gave my order as soberly as I could, and slamming down the door with an "Aye, aye, Mum," the man made his horse walk, as if adding to a funeral. I poked again and said, "A little faster," and then off he went, helter-skelter as before, and we resigned ourselves to our fate. Today was fair, and we went to Hyde Park, close by, for we are more aristocratic than we look. The Duke of Devonshire lives there. I often see his footman lounging at the back gate, and the Duke of Wellington's house is not far off. Such sights as I saw, my dear. It was as good as punch, for there were, excuse me, I'm getting so sleepy again. It was as good as punch, for there were fat dowagers rolling about in their red and yellow coaches with gorgeous leanness, gorgeous jamises, in silk stockings and velvet coats, up behind, and powdered coachmen in front. Smart maids with the rosiest children I ever saw, handsome girls, looking half asleep, dandies, in queer English hats and lavender kids, lounging about, and tall soldiers in short red jackets and muffin caps stuck on one side, looking so funny, I long to sketch them. Rotten Row means Route de Roy, or the King's Way, but now it's more like a riding school than anything else. The horses are splendid. And the men, especially the groom, ride well, but the women are stiff and bounce, which isn't according to our rule. I long to show them a terrible... I long to show them a tearing American gallop, for they trotted solemnly up and down in their scant habits and high hats, looking like the women in a toy Noah's Ark. Everyone rides. Old men, stout ladies, little children, and the young folks do a great deal of flirting here. I saw a pair exchange rosebuds, for it's the thing to wear one in the buttonhole, and I thought it rather a nice little idea. And we're nowhere near finishing, but I'm so sleepy again. I'm sleeping well at night, just not long enough. And I can't seem to go back to sleep in the morning. Sorry, folks. I'm going to get better. I do feel good. At least, except for a little headache earlier I had. Which I Zoomed a little bit with Sharon and some folks. But I was going to come back, and then by the time I made it back, it was over with. But tomorrow I'll do better, Miss Sharon. It was good to see all of you. Love to all. Be sweet, don't be ugly. Take a nap. Bye-bye.